As coronavirus cases continue to spike in the United States as winter approaches, the White House COVID task force is in open rebellion as a result of Donald Trump. The Daily Beast is reporting that nearly all of the top health experts in the task force have been driven to their wits' end by Donald Trump. So this is the coronavirus task force is the organization inside the White House that's supposed to be helping to control the coronavirus. So they're out there supposedly, basically saying this is the information that you need to keep yourself safe. This is the suggestions that we're doing for policy in order to deal with the coronavirus and the resulting, of course, economic fallout. These are our suggestions. And so they're literally trying to work to basically help people survive, which is what they're supposed to do. However, it's not going well. It's not going well at all. And the Daily Beast writes, after months of trying to avoid direct run-ins with the president, task force officials are no longer tiptoeing around Trump's demands. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Health and Infectious Disease, has for weeks spoken out against one of the fellow members. Now, this fellow member of the task force is now Donald Trump's favorite. So this is Dr. Scott Atlas, who is a neuroradiologist who has no experience in dealing with infectious disease, but is Donald Trump's go-to guy. Well, why is that? It's because he's putting out positive news and also cherry-picking data. So, that's nice. So, of course, as a result of that, Donald Trump is no longer, he hasn't really ever taken coronavirus seriously, let's be honest. He's not going out there and saying we should all wear masks, we should do social distancing or anything like that. He's using basically arguments from Dr. Atlas that suggests that, masks, they don't really do anything. You don't have to wear them. And everything's fine. We should just open up the country. Here we go. Now, more recently, Dr. Fauci has even accused the Trump campaign of harassing him. Wow. So, harassment. Wow. All right, there's more. Robert Redfield, director of the CDC, has gone after Atlas as well, claiming that, quote, everything he says is false. The CDC has pushed back against the White House's preference to not recommending testing asymptomatic individuals who can who can spread the virus to other people. That's why it's important to test asymptomatic people so you know who's infectious and who is not. And if you know that somebody's infectious, then you can actually isolate them and prevent other people from getting coronavirus, which is what they did not do in the White House. That's why over 30 staffers in the White House have come down with coronavirus. It's the guy's a super spreader. And not only is he spreading disinformation, but he's also spreading coronavirus everywhere. And so, and yet that's why he prefers, Trump prefers Dr. Atlas because, Atlas allows him to do it. Now, there's more. Despite demands by the White House that they remain under wraps, guidelines for COVID-19 vaccine makers that would make a release before the election virtually impossible were published last week by the FDA. So these guidelines, again, Donald Trump wants more than anything a vaccine for coronavirus. Now, look, I want a vaccine for coronavirus, but I want to make sure that that's safe and that it actually works. We don't have those guarantees yet, and I'm sorry, but it takes a while to actually get a vaccine that has been tested properly in clinical trials and that is deemed to be safe and effective. We do not have that. We were never going to have that before the election, regardless of who was president. We were not going to have that because it takes a while to do. And so Donald Trump doesn't give a damn. He's like, no. I want it before the election. I want it now so that we can get back to business, the stock market can go back up, and that I can win re-election. That, unfortunately, did not happen. And now, of course, the White House is livid that the FDA would actually publish these guidelines. As for comment about the increasing frustration among officials, the White House spokesperson, Brian Morgenstern, did not directly speak to the task force tensions and instead said this, quote, President Trump's top priority is the health and safety of the American people. Right. Morgenstern did acknowledge, however, after dodging that question, that Donald Trump sometimes disagrees with task force officials in good faith. Are you kidding me? No one in their right mind believes that. Oh, no, he disagrees, but he's acting in good faith. Right. Okay. Sure. All right. That account, by the way, is being rebuked by prior administration officials who say that this type of tension is basically unheard of and has pointed to what they call a growing rebellion among the ranks of the president's coronavirus task force. So this has gotten quite serious. For example, this is Tom Frieden, former director of the CDC under the Obama administration. The Obama administration that dealt with H1N1 and Ebola much more efficiently than Donald Trump has dealt with the coronavirus. Here's what he said. In prior emergencies with which Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx had been through, there have been better and worse responses. Oh, well, okay, well, that kind of makes the Trump administration not look quite as horrible. Oh, except when you add in this, quote, they've all shared some fundamental basic competence. To which the plain fact is that the administration's response to COVID has lacked that basic competence. So, in layman's terms, he just called the Trump administration incompetent. Yeah. Look, I think the things that Trump and the Republican Party, by the way, that enables him should be remembered for is the deep, deep level of absolute incompetence that surrounded everything that they've done on coronavirus. Simple as that. From not having a plan to not having any sort of organization, and then, of course, playing off failures, and just completely ignoring the failures, not even playing them off. They're just ignoring them. And they're basically pitching, and this is what, look, any Democratic strategist that might be watching, take note, right? This is basically the equivalent of the administration's response. It's basically the equivalent of pitching that mission accomplished banner on the aircraft carrier. That's what they've done. Coronavirus, we pretty much handled it. It's fine. But wait, cases are going up. I said it's fine. Open up the economy. Send the kids back to school. No, let's not do that. No, that's a terrible idea. Terrible idea. But they're doing it anyway. Mission accomplished. Donald Trump, he had it. He's over it now, allegedly. And, well, I mean, now we can get back to normal. Don't let the virus control your life. Oh, my God. Look, we're actually worse off now than before we originally started the closure of the economy. We're worse off when it comes to virus numbers, not just the economics, but the virus numbers as well. Okay, and the reason, of course, is that nobody stuck to it. Okay, nobody stuck to it, and so we've got more people dead. We have more people. We have over 7 million people that are infected, and the numbers are starting to spike again, which we were warned was going to happen if we didn't mask up and socially distance. Of course. Frieden continues by pointing this out. He said there's not been a consistent messaging from the federal government. Plus, there's been a politicization of mask wearing and a lack of discipline in thinking about when to close and what to open. You know, like gyms. And he added, quote, it's mind-boggling. And, of course, it's causing major friction inside the White House, as I mentioned, with this, as observers note. With Trump increasingly turning to Atlas for guidance, Birx, Fauci, and Redfield have all been sidelined. Yep. And in recent interviews, Fauci has said the task force isn't even meeting as often as it used to. Sometimes once a week. Birx has been on the road, participating only in local media interviews. And Redfield, meanwhile, has participated in virtually zero media appearances after a recent series of run-ins with the White House over masks, testing, and school reopening guidelines. Even as the former director of the CDC, William Foge, had sent a public letter urging him to, quote, stand up to a bully. And then, of course, there was a story the other day where Jonathan Karl, ABC News, wanted to get Fauci onto the program on Sunday, to which the White House had blocked him from doing. No, you cannot go on ABC News this week to talk about the coronavirus. Not going to happen. And then they go and lie and gaslight about it and say, oh, what are you talking about? You didn't invite anybody other than Dr. Fauci. To which, of course, the email, which was shown as part of receipts. So we saw, Jonathan Karl's private emails between him and the Trump administration, the communications director, asking for Dr. Birx, and like a whole bunch of other administration officials other than just Dr. Fauci, if Dr. Fauci was not available. So proven to be complete and utter lies. Complete and utter lies. But there's more. Andy Slavitt, Obama's former director of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, says this, quote, I have a lot of respect for Dr. Birx, and I think she has an understanding of what needs to be done. I think she does do her best to go out and explain those messages because the science is not that complicated anymore. I think there's a limited amount that they can do without the support of their boss, so they got to make do with the person who sits in the Oval Office. Even if that person, and this is what I'm adding, is a raging moron who does everything that he can to try to undermine the work of the coronavirus task force. That's why this is happening, by the way, because Donald Trump is actively undermining the entire point of the task force. It's just, now for Fauci, of course, it gets worse because now there's a very public feud going on between Donald Trump and Dr. Fauci. In fact, Fauci called out the Trump campaign after they decided to take his words out of context in a recent Trump ad to make Donald Trump look like he had done amazing on the coronavirus, which we all know he did not. Quote, by doing this against my will, they are, in effect, harassing me. He's accusing the Trump campaign of harassment. There's more. Since campaign ads are about getting votes, their harassment of me might have the opposite effect of turning some voters off. You think? Yeah. There's more details from other insiders as well. A senior administration official who works with the White House task force points out how Donald Trump is more worried about the election, something that we already knew, but of course, it's just more confirmation. He said as the election heated up, it got harder to get him to focus on the guidelines and data that we believe to be most important to saving lives. That is still the case now. It has been known that if you're bringing something to him that isn't likely to help his reelection or get the economy open to his liking, again, then you might as well not be presenting it to the president at all. So if it doesn't help him personally or politically, then he doesn't care to see it. Even if it means, or it is something that could potentially save people's lives, he ain't interested in seeing it. Not at all. His election is literally more important to him than your life. And unlike other politicians, which certainly that can be true to an extent, he can barely pretend otherwise. Like, he can't even put on a facade that he gives a shit. Like, he just doesn't care. In fact, Olivia Troy, former senior advisor for the task force, who left back in August, and has since, of course, endorsed Joe Biden, talked about how the president would show up to the meetings and just ask things like, quote, is this worse than the flu? And children aren't affected, right? only to be told that, yes, they can be affected, and no, it's not like the flu. So, by the way, those are all Fox News talking points. So he would go and he would watch Fox and Friends, and then he would live tweet, and then he would go and bring that to the coronavirus meetings and say, hey, I heard this, I heard children can't be affected. They can be infected, and they can super spread. And that's it. And by the way, when they would explain these things, she'd explain that they would quote, or that he would quote, kind of nod along, but then go out in public and say the opposite. This would happen all the time, and it was infuriating. Yeah. Dr. Fauci would tell the vice president and some of his senior staff that children could be major spreaders of it because the data is inconclusive, only to see the administration and Trump completely disregard it over and over again. And again, he couldn't even pretend to be interested in the virus at all. Troy recalled that in some meetings with the members of the COVID task force earlier this year, the president would routinely get distracted, i.e. bored, and instead want to talk about media that pissed him off. Not interested. What are you talking about? I want to talk about CNN because they did a very negative story on me, and I was very, very mad. Mr. President, we're actually trying to talk about coronavirus and the fact that we're seeing increasing death tolls. And just shut up. I want to talk about fake news CNN. Very, very bad. In fact, here's what they said. Quote, at times, he would go around the room and spend his time complimenting people for their recent TV appearances. He would compliment Kellyanne Conway or someone on how well he thought someone did, saying, oh, you did a great job on that today. Because, again, all he cares about is TV appearances. This was during meetings when we were trying to get him to focus on matters of life and death around the country. He don't care. He doesn't care. He never cared. It's always been about him. Understand that when he talks about something, even stimulus, because, for example, he comes out and he says, we need big stimulus. We need even bigger stimulus. For one, he's not going to get that. Mitch McConnell and the Republicans are, massively against a stimulus bill. Additional. And so, no, they're not going to get what he's not going to get what he wants. But the reason that he's doing it, by the way, is he's worried about his reelection. And so that's what he says. I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you health care. It's going to be great. So that he can get support and votes. And I'm not saying that other politicians don't do that. It's just that it's nakedly obvious that he's lying to the people in order to get that result, in order to get people to vote for him at the last minute. Because he knows he's in trouble, and he knows electorally, and he might be worried about, some of the stuff that might happen after the election. He's about as selfish as you can get. And I really want people to understand, he's not on your side. His whole worldview is that I don't work for you. You work for me. Everyone is my employee. That I'm not a public servant. The public serves me. He doesn't want to be a leader. He wants to be your boss. He fundamentally does not understand the meaning of service. And so if you elect him for another 4 years, understand exactly what you're getting. Someone who is going to put himself above everything else, even if it means your death. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.